Hey everybody, and welcome into Electric Bike Report. I'm Griffin.
And I'm John.
And today we're going over a lot of topics, including that $500 e-bike going away we talked about last week might already be making a comeback.
Not ideal, but we'll get into the details.
Also, a senator in Maryland is looking to make licensing and insurance mandatory for e-bikes.
Also a little iffy.
Yeah. And finally, we're answering a viewer question about the California e-bike law changes. Is your e-bike now breaking the law?
We'll find out later, partner, in this week's episode of the Weekly Recharge. All right, well, for this week's news, we'll start off with the first story here. President Trump reopened the de minimis exemption on cheap e-bike imported from China. So we reported on this last week where there was a loophole that allowed e-bikes below the value of $800 to enter the US, and they were exempt from safety requirements and taxes, duties, that sort of thing. So that loophole was closed, but it now has been reopened again.
Womp womp.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So essentially, the reason that it was reopened is that the processes were not yet in place to make the process efficient. All of the employees, the checks and balances that all this stuff needs to run through, that just wasn't there yet. So to pull a quote from this article from Bicycle Retailer, an executive order said the loophole will be closed again when Secretary of Commerce notifies the president that, quote, adequate systems are in place to fully and expediently process and collect tariff revenue applicable pursuant to subsection A of the section for covered articles otherwise eligible for de minimis treatment. So bottom line, it kind of makes sense that this is, we just need to set these things up before we go jumping the gun.
Yeah, like we said last week, we're in favor of not allowing cheaper e-bikes to bypass safety standards.
Exactly.
It's kind of like a no-brainer, but we can also sympathize with the fact that you can't just close that down and suddenly expect we can do checks and balances properly. So as long as, it's not here today, gone tomorrow, like they actually look to enforce this, it's going to be better in the long run, as long as we can get this ironed out fairly quickly. So
it seems to be temporary. Yep.
Also from Bicycle Retailer, a senator in Maryland is trying to make it mandatory for licensing and insurance for e-bikes. Now, Johnny Ray Salling, I believe, from Baltimore County's District 6, submitted a bill that originally also had other things in there, calling for a $20 fee for titling and an annual $30 for registration as well for e-bikes. Now, the current form of the bill has edited those two qualifications out, but they still are pushing for licensing and insurance. Now, this bill has received a lot of pushback from both People for Bikes and the League of American Bicyclists. Regarding insurance, Dr. Ash Lovell, who is People for Bikes Vice President of Government Relations, said, in New Jersey, the only other state that had proposed registration and insurance requirements for electric bikes, the insurance industry actively opposed the bill simply because there were no policy available for owners of electric bicycles. Additionally, the insurance industry did not know how to price such policies other than to equate them with very expensive motorcycle insurance, which could annually cost consumers as much as the initial purchase price of many electric bicycles. So forgive us if you've been watching the show regularly. We're going to sound like, repetitive here. Let's make things easier for bikes and not harder. I don't think in general we are going to advocate for licensing and insurance on e-bikes. It's going to be a lot more cost, barriers to entry, just muddying the waters a lot for things which are not motorcycles, which are not these other vehicles. Look, if someone on a bike gets in a crash, they might have a helmet, but they're just as likely to be injured as the pedestrian. Bicyclists are looking to avoid pedestrians. I don't think we need to force them into licensing and insurance.
I agree. I think, that if you purchase a premium e-bike, maybe you want to do that. You want to choose to insure your bike, protect that purchase.
Then by all means, hopefully, you can get that option.
Yeah, but don't force someone who purchases a $1,000 e-bike to have to shell out more for insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when the insurance companies themselves, like in New Jersey, we're like, we don't know what to do with these things. Let's just call motorcycles. Like, it feels like a bill for the sake of a bill when there's no what comes next infrastructure in place already set up. Again, the insurance companies
familiar, kind of like our
sounds familiar,
story,
kind of like who we just talked about. Exactly.
All right. Moving on, the UK revoked tariffs on non-folding e-bikes imported from China, which eventually brought some costs down. So prior to this change, there were two tariffs applied to e-bikes that were imported from China. There was an anti-dumping measure of between 10.3% and 70.1%, and then a countervailing measure of 3.9% to 17.2%. Now, those things get kind of complicated, but basically, the decision was made here by the Trade Remedies Authority, and it was made because 95% of the non-folding e-bikes in the UK are imported. the domestic manufacturing there tends to focus on folding e-bikes, so tariffs are still going to apply to folding e-bikes. They're kind of protecting their domestic manufacturing. But basically the Trade Remedies Authority found that with this change, a lot of folks can save a lot of money. You can save up to 200 pounds per bike after the tariffs were revoked.
Pounds the money, not
Pounds
the
the
weight.
money, yes, exactly.
For our U.S. audience.
Bottom line, we kind of wish the U.S. would adopt the same approach. Here, manufacturing isn't as set up in the e-bike space, so the tariffs are just kind of hurting the industry here, but it seems like over there this is a smarter move. It is kind of protecting those.
It's a good move to kind of protect those who are doing stuff locally already.
Exactly, and so since they don't have e-bike or non-folding e-bike infrastructure in place, they are not applying those tariffs. So sounds good.
And then for our final news story, we have actually a really cool pedal design that we spotted. So this comes from 9.8, and this is going to save shins everywhere. So in general, I'm actually an advocate for pins on pedals. I really like the extra grip that you get, but there is the undeniable downside of if your feet slip off, you're gonna take a cheese grater to your shins. So this one kind of reverses the typical process, putting the pins into cycling shoes, and then just a special rubber compound to the pedal itself so you can kind of get that grip. So flipping it, doing the inverse design pretty much. But I really like the look of this. Works with any bicycling shoe. You can kind of insert the pins manually, or it even works with SPD clip-ins. And I think it's going to be a really good training shoe, I think, for like kids and stuff like that. I kind of think, that's where I banged up my shins a lot, was in early days.
That makes sense.
Got a little bit better with it as I, progressed. But all in all, just really cool looking design. Kind of interested to see how it does in the wild.
Yeah, that definitely seems promising. So that does it for this week's news. All right, in this cool find section, we take a look at some videos that our team has come across this week and give you our reactions. What do we have up first?
Well, let's see what we got. Over on Instagram, Cargo Bike Mama making another appearance. What do we got?
Do you know what it's like biking in the winter in New York City?
I would like to know what it's like.
It's not that bad. The biggest challenge is usually the cold, which is easily overcome with the bike.
Insulate.
And thanks to global warming, it doesn't snow that often or
Let's
that much.
not
But
talk
when
about
it
that.
does,
Thanks to
main
global
roads
warming.
And the side roads are pretty clear. Riding through Central Park on a crisp,
I would like to
snowy
ride through
day
Central
is
Park.
brilliant.
That looks pretty.
Yeah,
I
it'd be
wish I
super
could
cool.
rave about the bike lanes, but they are less fun in the winter. And while they have been
Slush.
loud, I'll give the DOT a D+ for minimal effort and leaving lots of snow and ice
Bummer.
behind.
A D+.
And of course, the painted bike
Calling
lanes
out
are
the
a mess.
DOT.
Filled with cars and
Man.
snow because paint makes
People
terrible
parking all over the
surfaces.
place.
Oh,
But
man.
that's nothing new. Also, a
Gotta
quick
get some
reminder to
bike
wipe down
lanes.
your
Yeah.
bike carts to remove any salt that might be there.
That
And
makes
good tip.
sense.
all in all, biking in New York City in the winter is completely doable.
She is dedicated.
She is dedicated. She's the Cargo Bike Mama.
Yeah, she owns it.
She's not the part-time Cargo Bike Mama.
All right, next up from Ray's Culture.
Sure. Thank you, Norway. You have been amazing. Weeks of planning, adjusting, and finally making it happen. A long winter cycling adventure has long been on my radar. Glad it finally came to reality. Keep cycling in the winter. Rewards are plenty.
This is really nice. I
You
like
know,
this music.
We obviously ride in the winter, but we're spoiled. We live in a desert, so it's not hard. So I do,
Today
hats
was
off.
the only day that
Yeah.
it snowed here this year.
And we get
so-
flurries for like 8 seconds and
Yeah.
they go away. But hats off to those who are still out pedaling out in the snow. Good on you. Look at this. Trudging.
I wouldn't mind it
That's
if I had
trudging
that
right there.
soundtrack the whole time.
I was gonna
it's
say.
very nice.
Very peaceful and pleasant.
Yeah.
Look at that. Over the bridge. Like it.
All right.
Okay. Josh Glank on Instagram. Get off the road. Sketch comedy. Okay.
Not what I was
He's got the hip
expecting.
movement. He's got the hip movement down. Epic mustache.
Yes. Hey, I've had some of those moments myself.
See, I keep both. If I ever got to that point, I'd keep both hands on before extending the finger. But he made sure it was seen.
Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Not that I've ever given anyone the finger while riding.
Sure.
No, never. I've had bouts of rage. All right, so next we've got Triple B Brew Bike Booth. What on earth
That's
do
an
we
interesting
have
shock
here? Look at that
placement.
thing. What is going on? This is like I haven't seen anything like this before.
No.
Hit the ground running with the new bike and its clear white, the fully superb and contrasting colors, really ready to bring it to life. Just take a look at this thing. This is.
Wow.
The
That's
word
a
intricate
different
is
take
coming
on
to mind.
suspension.
I would love to take that into a local mechanic and just be like, here, can you service this, and just kind of see what they do.
Yeah. What is this?
Yeah.
That looks really sharp,
like
though.
the gold
Like,
welds it. That's real. Ooh. Number 3.
dang.
That is something else. Oh, we got to see the raw process. And then, of course, drinks along the way.
Knock back a cold one during the process. Yeah. Wow.
Cool.
Looks great. All
All right.
Spin with Jim.
Inflatable helmet.
Whoa.
He does have the inflatable helmet.
This new lid inflates from this tiny little package.
I don't know if I'd trust it.
Just 30 seconds.
I like that they call them lids over there.
Electric mini pump.
It is cool.
Also inflate your bike tires when out riding too.
The hell?
You can use any press to pump to blow it up.
What are those helmet ratings? I want to know if it's
Right here.
certified.
Probably not the same as a nice hard shell, but wait.
Well-
Oh, proved me wrong maybe?
That actually looks pretty legit.
And it feels about
Okay.
as comfortable as a good normal lid.
I would be willing to do some research, look into it.
Just these
I'll
simple
stick with the
steps
hard shell.
do the job pretty well.
I just said research it. I didn't say I'm ready to swap to
Dive
it full
in.
time,
Yeah.
but
That's fair.
It's made from triple laminated nylon, so you should.
This is a Brain
triple
Mushmaker
laminated
1000.
is better than double laminated, I hear.
I will take your word for it.
Without paying Ryanair extra for that oversized
Great, something else to go flat. Yes.
I bet you never thought. I wish someone made
Yeah.
an inflatable helmet.
Cool.
Ah, well, something to check out.
Yeah. If you're brave and bold.
Well, I'm gonna volunteer you to go check that one out, but Now we got.
All
Let's
right,
see,
got a
Rock
phone
Bros. Bike phone holder is flexible. The flexible ones, I'm like torn on those. I've tried a couple. They haven't
They're okay.
failed, but like,
They feel a little janky. I don't know.
yeah. I don't know.
No shade on Rock Bros, but
Well, that was like my first phone holder was a flexible one. It was easy to get on and stuff like that, but again, it
Yeah.
just never sat right. Like it's just constantly on the move.
I'm always afraid the phone's just gonna fall out of it.
That's just the thing.
Too
It's
much
like,
vibration.
I think that's what I'm saying. It's like it never did fall out, but it just the feeling that it's going to any second like does not leave you.
Exactly. All right, and last but not least, people for bikes. Hey, pile of batteries.
The battery monster. Hungry for batteries. Visit hungryforbatteries.com. That's right, people. If you get a new e-bike, don't just look to toss your old one out or just give it to anyone. Make sure you properly recycle. I mean, goodness gracious knows we go through a lot of lithium in our industry.
It is a finite resource.
Yeah, make sure you're doing recycling out there. So that's gonna do it for the fun finds of the week. Okay, now let's give you a little peek behind the curtain into what we've got going on in the works here at Electric Bike Report. So we have received even more bikes in, and they also came along with embargoes. So I swear we're getting very close to being able to talk about these in public. Make sure you're subscribed so you can check the reviews when they come out, but we do have some really cool bikes that we're really antsy to talk about.
And you're gonna want to hear about them for sure.
And then in some other news,
I bought an e-bike.
this guy got a new bike.
I got a really killer deal on a Stromer ST2. I definitely gravitate toward the commuter style, and this one I just couldn't pass up. I absolutely enjoy it so far. You gotta run it by the bike shop and get a couple things looked at. The light was kind of, but
a little finicky, but
rode it to work a couple days. It's been a lot of fun. So.
And have you? I mean, does it have a name? Have you fully taken it in?
I have, yeah. I'm a namer of things, so my car has a name. My bike now has a name. Her name's Gretchen. So.
Oh, Gretchen.
She's-
Wait, what's the car's name?
Car's name is Saphira.
Saphira?
Yeah.
Okay. Man, you go not like Sarah. You go for the unique ones. I like it.
My last car was Minerva.
Oh, okay.
I liked that one.
Yeah,
but,
very fun.
Anyway, we do have some other stuff in the works that we can talk about. Griffin and I both have been working on some educational content, so
Yeah.
we will hopefully be filming that soon. Griffin, you're working on an article about motors, right?
Exactly. We get a lot of questions still about some of the basics regarding hub motors, mid-edge motors. Kind of gonna just dive into the high level things to know so that you can share with your friends or get educated yourself on some of the finer details you might not be aware of. Really looking forward to getting that one out there. So.
And then I'm working on an article about how to extend your battery life. That's something that you definitely want to make sure that you do if you invest in an e-bike. So
I was gonna say proper maintenance and care can go a long way, and I would assume that when people buy these, they want to ride them for years and years and years. Keep that battery life going strong. So.
Yeah, honestly, like having just purchased an e-bike, that's something I'm going to start employing these practices myself, which is very good. And then we also have a couple of other best videos in the works. So again, make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned if that sounds good. And then we do have a few things that went live.
That's right.
So the 10Ways Seago 600 Pro C, which is the chain drive version of 10Ways lightweight city bike. That was my review. So that one is a good one if you're into that sort of thing. Very responsive motor. motor, subtle pedal assist, but very helpful and definitely a lot of fun. And the fact that it has a 7-speed drivetrain now instead of just a single speed gives you a lot more flexibility for different types of terrain.
And just to tease, it did really, really well on the hill test.
It did. That's absolutely right.
Cool. And then, city bikes were going around, so I've also got my review up for the Aventon 2.5. So this is a little bit more of a refresh than a full redesign. Added a couple of new features to it, including hydraulic brakes, some subtle tweaks to the frame and stuff like that. But again, another really good and solid city bike. I really like the color of it as well, kind of that mint turquoise-ish, whatever you want to call it. But
very nice.
But overall, make sure you check out both John and mine's reviews if you haven't already, and you're looking for a city bike. So.
And hopefully we get to talk about those embargoed bikes soon. All right, so in this section, we like to take a look at various places around the country and the world that have e-bike infrastructure, very cool trail systems, or just cities that have, a bunch of bike lanes that sort of cater to commuting on bikes. But no matter where you ride your bike, it's good to have some nice scenery. So today we are heading to Canada, eh?
Hey, yes we are. So this week we're going to Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia, Canada. So over there on the eastern side, but this is a really just cool looking island, and the more I looked into it, the more there was to like. So a couple of things to know if you are thinking of taking a journey up there. Canadians already know this, but for the USA-based audience, 500-watt motor limits and 20 mile per hour.
Yep.
But assuming you meet those qualifications, there's lots of really cool riding to do up here. So there is 57 miles or 92 kilometers total of multi-use trails, and there's just some really cool places to check out. They've got this, I believe it's pronounced Mabu. I don't know, but. Mabou, however you pronounce that. And then,
you do you.
Some really cool trails from there. They've also got Mabu Village to check out. And then if you're like me and you like history, they actually have the North America's first single malt whiskey distillery is up there, the Glenora Distillery. So lots of cool stuff to check out. But overall, it's just a really beautiful looking place to ride. The trail features diverse terrains, including coastal paths, forested areas, and open fields. There's some wildlife there to check out as well, including, some seabirds, deer, and just various other small mammals and things like that. And if you don't have an e-bike to take along, they actually do have a rental shop there, Mike's e-bikes. You can rent an e-bike. They'll even do a 3-hour tour of the Marabou Trail and whatnot. So you have a few different options to pick from. I think 20 miles is the longest trail they had, I think that I saw, but a lot of other 10, 12 mile ones. So there's some really cool stuff to check out. And again, it's a beautiful looking place. Just look at some of those photos.
These photos, seriously, this looks like it scratches kind of all the itches for the things that we look for in a good trail system. A lot of nice views, a lot of different types of scenery and the wildlife.
I was going to say, coming across these photos, especially here in wintertime while it's cold and wet outside, it's just dig the coastal look. It just looks nice and pleasant.
It really does. I would personally like to check this out. But hey, if you have ridden this trail system, let us know down in the comment section. We'd love to hear what you thought about it. And if you have anything near where you live that we should take a look at, also let us know down there as well. Anything else to add?
No, just that.
All right, let's keep moving.
All right, so now we're going to jump into some questions and comments that you guys have left us either on our website or on YouTube, and sometimes at our email at questions@electricbikereport.com. Shameless
Nice
plug.
job.
So if you want, if you want us to jump into your questions next week, make sure to hit us up there. But for now, let's do what we got. So this one's coming to us from TDBL9LB. Oh, the second part of that's a palindrome. That's fun.
That's exactly right.
This is on the Lectric One review, and they asked, is the e-bike still legal in California in 2025? It's a good question regarding some changes California's made recently.
That is a good question. And the real answer here is yes and no.
Right.
Just because of the way that this sort of breaks down. So that bill that California passed is called SB 1271, basically reclassified e-bikes. And so because of that, an e-bike in California is defined by law as something with a motor that cannot exceed 750 watts. Mm-hmm. So by its very nature, the electric one does exceed that limit. So that means that doesn't mean that it's illegal to own. That means that it is no longer classified as an e-bike.
According to California.
According to California, yes.
Correct.
So you can own it, you can ride it, you may need to look into registering it depending on
I was going to say, we covered this a few weeks ago where there's a very specific case of someone was trying to like leave an e-bike at their like kid's school.
Yes.
But they couldn't leave it because it technically wasn't an e-bike. The school was unable to recognize it as such, so they weren't like allowed to take it in.
That was the Super 73.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was with Super 73. So there will be specific cases where it might be problematic in terms of day-to-day. Do you have to worry about stuff? I'm not a police officer or anything like that, but I'm going to just venture out and just say you're probably fine to just keep riding it as long as you're not causing mischief.
If you do, then that might be a problem.
Then
so
that might
that's
just be something to add on
you.
top. But I mean,
Yeah.
overall, you're fine to keep riding with it. You don't need to turn it in or whatever. But
Yeah, exactly. So hope that helped. If you need any further clarification, do let us know.
yeah. All right.
Next up, we have on last week's episode of the show from Oliver's Armiento 4628.
Sure.
Doing my best here, sorry. Will this affect US brand bike manufactured in China like Specialized? And that's in reference to the tariff discussion that we had.
Correct. So on last week's episode, we talked a little bit about there was a bill floated out there. Basically, think of it as like eye for an eye, like legislation.
The
kind of.
Reciprocal Trade Act.
Exactly.
Yes.
So if they tariff us, we tariff them. So it could potentially down the road, like Specialized, the brand they're specifically asking about, they do manufacturing in China and Taiwan, I believe. So it could affect that. But again, this is kind of, it's just a bill right now. It's not a law. It's not something that's actively or can be acted upon. So it's a maybe. We'll see down the road kind of how it all plays out.
Also, if the bill passes, the bill allows us to counter tariff.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that we do it automatically.
Exactly.
So like if this bill passes, we could choose to only apply tariffs to China and not Taiwan. So in that case, who knows?
Taiwan and not China, or both. It just gives, the power to do whatever, wherever.
It opens
basically.
the door, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Someone tariffs us, we tariff them. But good question. All right, so next up we have, this comes from our best electric bikes under 1,000 from BJIL3640. I gotta get
Doing our best. Sorry.
I gotta get glasses or something because I can't see all the letters. But and they say, great video. Any recommendation from these models based on a smooth gravel road, roughly 2-mile ride round trip, but would also like the option in rare emergency case if had to drive 30 minutes on pavement. Note, not a fan of the traditional or older bike styles, liking the Ebike Mars 2.0, but concerned with stopping and no hydraulic brakes. Thanks.
Good question. So, looking at our test data, the Ebike Mars 2.0, its stopping distance was a little bit on the longer side with its mechanical disc brakes, but it did still stop within the range that we consider safe and effective. So I would say don't let that dissuade you if you like the Ebike Mars. You'd probably have the most comfortable ride on that bike just because of the suspension seat post and the larger 4-inch fat tires.
Pretty plush saddle on it too, man.
Yeah, definitely. But depending on your height, you may also want to consider the Ride-On-Up Portola. So both bikes have fairly similar knobby tires. And then, if you're not a fan of older bikes, older styles, kind of like the XP 3.0, then, the Portola may also scratch that itch for you.
And just to clarify one thing, if I may, when you say depending on your height for the Portola being a little bit more size on the smaller side.
Good point.
Kind of the sweet spot for shorter riders on that bike, at least we feel. So.
Yeah. If you're on the taller side, you can definitely still throttle around and you can still pedal.
100%,
You just might not have that full leg extension.
Yep.
And then, just kind of personally, if it were me looking at this list of bikes and making a decision, I would probably choose the high step model of the Lectric Express 500 and then maybe just swap out the tires.
Get some knobbies on there instead.
Yeah, I think, that'll definitely do you well if you do like, more of a full size bike instead of a folding bike option.
Yeah, good idea.
Next up, a question from Daniel Spencer on the Aventon Aventure.2 ST review on the website. He said, hello, I'm shopping for another e-bike and have some questions about the Aventon Aventure.2. Step through, how sensitive is the torque sensor? Does it require much pressure to activate it? Is it a gradual increase of power as you push harder or all or nothing? And does it give you any power if you just ghost pedal? Thanks again, Daniel Spencer, who is a retired U.S. Air Force
awesome
service member. Thank you.
Well, first of all, Daniel, thank you for your service, and thank you for the question. So that was actually, I think, 4 questions. We'll kind of just go through them one at a time and just talk about torque sensors in general, I think. So when it comes to the Adventure, we were actually really impressed with how the torque sensor responds on that particular bike. I would say it skews maybe a little bit towards the more powerful side of things as opposed to more natural, but I think it's also really befitting of that style of bike. So, you know, kind of going back to some of your questions there, like how sensitive is it? I'd say it's appropriately sensitive, just erring on the side of power. Does it require much pressure to activate it? So you do need to keep some amount of tension in the chain. It's going to largely depend on the amount or the assist mode that you choose to be in. If you're in eco, it's going to be, you know, you might need to push a little bit harder to get a little bit faster. And if you crank that thing up to turbo mode, just a little bit of pressure, and you'll be off to the races. So really just kind of depends on how you ride it. Is it a gradual increase of power, or you push as you push harder, all or nothing? So I'd say it ramps up things very well. The acceleration does not feel herky-jerky by any means, and like I said, it does a really good job kind of meeting you where you're at in terms of the amount of pressure that you're putting into it. And then finally, does it give any power if you just ghost pedal? So with any torque sensor e-bike, ghost pedaling is not not a good thing. And on this bike, I don't remember there being much ghost pedaling on the Adventure. I think it actually does a really good job of that.
It does.
If you keep it in a gear where you would be ghost pedaling at like a higher speed, for example, you're really not going to get much motor help. It is designed to push forward when it senses tension in that chain. So, you know, if you do want kind of an easier time and to just go without needing to pedal or, you know, ghost pedal, it does have a throttle and you can just engage that throttle instead, and then you're, you know, like pretty good. But just to put a bow on everything, like I said, a little bit more powerful, but really good gear range, really good at meeting where you're at. And if you need an easier time, just hit the throttle.
To add my 2 cents to that, I mean, just speaking very plainly here, like we've just very much been a fan of Aventon's torque sensors in general. They feel great. So I would say, you know, don't hesitate if that is something that you're interested in. Like it doesn't get much better. So.
I was gonna say, usually if the Adventure's on your short list, we usually just say, yes, go get it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a pretty good bike. All right, so next up we've got, this is from our Specialized Turbo Vado 4.0 review from Zachary Stokes. I actually knew someone named Zachary Stokes. I'm gonna go check and see if you're the kid I grew up with. But trying to decide between a Turbo Vado 4.0 EQ for $2,750 or a Bull's iconic Evo TR 1750 for $3,500. I have decision paralysis. We can relate. Decision paralysis, it's a rampant problem. Let's see if we can kind of help him out a little bit.
Hopefully we can help you out, yeah. So, I mean, number one, that price for the Turbo Vado, that's excellent. You know, we have reviewed the Turbo Vado and it's a fantastic bike. We have not reviewed that specific Bulls bike, but the ones that we have reviewed from Bulls have all been top notch as well. So, you know, again, I can understand your decision paralysis. So just kind of looking at those two bikes, they do seem to kind of lend themselves to different types of riders and different styles of riding. So we'd recommend the Turbo Vado if you tend to stick mostly to paved paths or roads. It just feels really dialed in. The motor is beautiful.
Absolutely.
Very smooth, very natural feeling. And then there's a lot of cool features through the Specialized app that you get with the Turbo Vado. You can tune the motor output. There's some security features and stuff as well. And then, you know, just based on the price, that might be the better option if you're looking to save a little cash. But, you know, looking at the Bulls, full suspension, that's gonna be a very comfortable ride. It's got the motor there. That's also something that we've tested on other bikes, similar in feel to what you get on the Specialized. So I would say don't make a decision on the motor alone. And you know, while the Turbo Vado is more of a dedicated commuter, this one gives you a little bit more flexibility to ride on or off road. So
one
if
of
you
those
want
hybrid styles for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it definitely has the commuter influence, but it's kind of got some elements of an EMTB. There's actually a dropper post on that bike, which is pretty cool. So.
Exactly. That's I'm just kind of like back up basically what John said. If you're going to predominantly be on like paved riding, maybe just err on the side of Specialized. The full suspension and stuff is really like nice. Like it's not a bad thing to have on a commuter, but it's also like a little unnecessary in most cases, I'd say. So like again, where the price difference is what, $700 or something like that there. Like, yeah. But on the flip side, if you do want to do a little more off-roading, then the hybrid Bulls might be the better choice. Just kind of ask yourself that honest question, how much am I going to be going off-road? And if the answer is a little to a lot, maybe you can get the Bulls. But if it's like, I'm pretty much sticking to paved stuff, maybe just stick with Specialized.
Yep. All right, and then next up, another question from the Best Under 1,000 e-bikes video. This is from Scotch DRNKR. I'm sorry. This is a rough week for screen names here.
You're really griffining it up.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
With pronouncing the names.
This person asks, do you guys do any testing on conversion kits? I have recumbent trikes. I have to ride a trike due to health issues. And due to the expense of these two bikes, I'd like to convert at least one of them to an e-bike. I guess I could trade in one of them, but love both of them and would prefer to just convert one or both.
So
that's a tricky one.
That is a little bit tricky. Full disclosure here, we have not tested any conversion kits on a recumbent trike. For that matter, we've not tested a ton of conversion kits as it is. We've done a couple in the past. We're actually in the midst of doing one with the bimodal Elevate system, but that's largely being used on EMTBs right now, and I just don't fully know how that's going to work and sync up with a recumbent trike. So this is just us being honest. We're not entirely sure which way to recommend you. It might be better to trade in one of the two that you have now and look at getting a dedicated recumbent e-trike, because the one thing I do know about that is a dedicated fan base. People who get recumbent electric trikes, they love them and rave about them all the time. So it might be worth swapping one out, even though you like the two you have. Whichever one you feel more comfortable parting with, maybe turn that one into an electric recumbent instead. Those are big words and hard to say back to back.
They are, and they're not words that you say commonly. So.
Exactly.
Well, we hope that helps you. And if you have any questions, make sure you drop them down in the comments section or email us at questions@electricbikereport.com. You know what time it is, Griffin. It's time for Deals of the Week.
I was gonna let you go solo.
Oh man, Deals of the Week. There we go. All right. What do we got? Lead us off.
Okay, so we do have some good deals worth talking about. So leading things off, Superhuman e-bikes, or as we used to know them, FLX. They have a deal right now for the very popular and very interesting,
controversial, one might say,
Baby Maker 2. So it's kind of getting a rebrand to like Baby Maker Classic now, but they are selling it for $9.99, which is a really good deal on that bike. So it's technically in pre-order. Again, they're rebranding, but it's kind of like a fixie style flat bar road bike, lightweight, very stealthy. Most people you ride by won't know it's an e-bike. It's a subtle 350 watt motor. Just a really cool looking bike and got really cool colors to it. So take a look at it. That's a pretty good savings on that bike.
Yeah, I haven't been on that bike in a while, but that was one of my early favorites when I started.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a fun time.
Next up, we have a sale going on at Trek. Ooh. So they've got quite a few things on sale here. So the Elant Plus 8S, that's a commuter e-bike that we reviewed, is $2,000 off down to $2,500. That's a sweet, great deal for that bike. The Bosch Kobe.bike app that works with that is
still
just
one of my favorites.
Stellar, yeah, for sure. Then we've got the FX Plus 2 City bike that is $900 off down to $1,600.
Just came out with a new generation of FXs, so we're probably
the
seeing
Plus
some
7,
discounts there.
yeah.
But while the new one looks cool, I mean, that old one was a beloved one that we've tested as well. So
very nice bike. And then if you're into road bikes, you might want to check out the Domain Plus SLR6 Pro. That is $2,500 off down to $6,000.
Oh, heck yeah. And then in our final sale of the week, so Backcountry has actually got a whole bunch of different bikes on sale right now, so I thought it was worth shouting out. Now, usually when we do talk about the sales, we stick to bikes that we know, but there was enough brand names in here with enough street cred that I saw good savings. I just kind of want to pass them along to you guys. So
right on.
Most of the sales are on older inventory from what I can gather, but you're seeing brand names such as Gazelle, Santa Cruz, Rocky Mountain, Cervelo. There's just a lot of really cool stuff in there. Caught my eye personally. There's a Scott Addict E-Ride road bike that is 47% off. Huge savings there. And then the Gazelle Medio T9 City bike, which is immensely popular, 39% off there in the mid, $1,500 range. Just really good savings on some big name brands.
That one stands out to me for sure. So.
Yep. So definitely, as always, we're not actually insiders on these. These are just the things that we're keeping track of and seeing. I don't know how long they're gonna last, so get them while they're gone if it looks good to you. As our way of saying thank you to our audience for supporting us, for watching, for reading, content back on the website, all that stuff, we like to highlight one of you each and every week. And this week, John, I believe, has our Rider of the Week. John, who do we got?
That's right. This is from Richard J. Cote 9854, who commented on the Best for Heavy Riders video that we did. And speaking of the Specialized Turbo Vado that we talked about earlier, Richard says, I am 6'2", 250 pounds, and have the Specialized Turbo Vado 5.0. Got more than 3,000 miles or 5,000 kilometers kilometers on it, half gravel, half road. Range would be about 50 miles, many more if I would not use turbo. So far it's good. Need to change the chain this year and the display mounting broke. Brake changed last year, tuned every year. My verdict is it's sure choice.
Sure choice. I like that. We need to start saying that more often.
I like those choice of words.
Dude, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Richard, for writing in. And hey, if you would like to be featured here, like next week, just leave us a comment either somewhere on YouTube or send us an email, questions at Electric Bike Report. We'd love to shout you out and say thanks.
As always, thank you very much for tuning in and watching with us. We've said it before, we'll say it again. Drop us a line down in the comments. Let us know at questions@electricbikereport.com. Send us, details on what bike you have, how you use it, how you like it, what you think about the show, what questions you have, all of the things.
Absolutely. Half the show is just interacting with you guys, the stuff you send us. If you have a question and you want to be featured, hey, just drop us a line in the comments.
And as always, make sure you like and subscribe. We'll see you next time on The Weekly Recharge.